Good evening and welcome to Inside City Hall for Monday, August 11, 2025. I'm Ayana Harry in for Errol Lewis. Democratic mayoral nominee Zohran Mamdani wants New Yorkers to know stand up to President Donald Trump. He's now announcing and embarking on a new five-borough tour to showcase his plans. He's also turning up the heat on candidate Andrew Cuomo for his alleged coordination with the president ahead of the general election. Our State House reporter Bernadette Hogan joins me now with more. Bernadette, good evening.
Good evening, Ayana. And Mamdani is running in a city where Democrats heavily outnumber Republicans. Mamdani is trying to draw a contrast between what he would do if he ended up being elected mayor and what Donald Trump and Republicans in Washington are proposing and how they could impact New Yorkers.
There is no borough that will be free from Trump's cruelty.
The Democratic mayoral nominee is announcing that he will visit all 5 boroughs this week, highlighting anticipated cuts to New Yorkers' health care and other social service programs included in President Donald Trump's so-called Big Beautiful Bill.
We will shine a light this week and the costs of this vision that is coming out of Washington, D.C.
Also shining a spotlight on reports that Trump and mayoral candidate Andrew Cuomo are allegedly secretly communicating.
We see far too many parallels between Donald Trump and Andrew Cuomo. We know a fraud when we see one.
Announcing he'll set income limits for people seeking to live in rent-stabilized units.
How many New Yorkers would have their lives upended by a former governor who is responding to the fact that he was handedly beaten by a tenant of a rent-stabilized apartment?
Before making a $142,000 a year salary as a state assemblyman, Mamdani found a Street Easy post for a rent-stabilized one-bedroom in Astoria, Queens. He could afford on his then under $50,000 annual income that he now shares with his wife, paying $2,300 a month.
The law allows him, like any other New Yorker, to rent a rent-stabilized apartment, saying that people over a rent-stabilized apartment would be tantamount to saying in many neighborhoods that they can't rent an apartment at all.
Designed in the 1970s, now over 1 million apartments are covered by these pro-tenant regulations. Landlords cannot hike rents unless first approved by the Rent Guidelines Board. If he wins, Mamdani promises to freeze those increases.
The reason why most economists would say that regulating rents is a bad idea is because doing so perpetuates the very shortage that the emergency was intended to address. After 50 years or so of rent stabilization in the midst of a terrible housing shortage.
Mayor Eric Adams chimed in, also blaming Cuomo for signing a 2019 law removing income caps for tenants.
Low-income apartments should be just for that, low-income people. And people of, great wealth. When there's low-income apartments, low-income New Yorkers should have an opportunity to do so. These are the results of Cuomo's laws. His laws created the problems that we have to constantly go back and fix.
And if Andrew Cuomo really did want to change how rent stabilization, how those regulations are formulated, Ayana, he would also need assistance from the state legislature in order to rubber stamp and get the governor to sign on.
Bernadette, at the heart of Andrew Cuomo's assertion, is he trying to imply that, I guess, Zohran Mamdani is wealthy, that he's rich, that he isn't the advocate for the everyday New Yorker that he claims to be? That's what it seems like Andrew Cuomo is trying to get at.
That's exactly it. Mamdani has, his mother is a famous producer, filmmaker, and his father was a Columbia professor, actually still is a Columbia professor. Mamdani ended up growing up in Columbia housing. And, there's photos out there of Mamdani with his family at movie premieres. Andrew, who's living in a heavily subsidized apartment. However, if you look at Andrew Cuomo's own background, he comes from a political dynasty. His own father was governor of New York State before Andrew Cuomo was. Also, Andrew Cuomo married into the Kennedy family. And, we all know that they have an enormous amount of wealth as well. So it's kind of these parallels going on between the two candidates. And Andrew Cuomo, instead of maybe attacking the policy of rent stabilization and saying that should be reformed, that's a different conversation than Cuomo going after Mamdani for his personal history and where he ended up and he is eligible to live in.
Okay, thank you, Bernadette. And trying to expand a police strategy that Mayor Adams says is working, officials announced today the NYPD Quality of Life Unit is coming to Queens. The push is being made as the mayor is facing an uphill re-election bid and is looking to capitalize on some decrease. Now with more, Kelly, good evening.
Hi, Ayanna. The quality of life teams have now expanded into 4 boroughs, with Queens being the latest. The mayor is looking to couple crime actually going down with the feeling of being safe here in the city.
Whether it's taking their kids to school, walking in their neighborhood, they deserve to be safe and feel safe.
The city's quality of life unit expanded into Queens on Monday, with every precinct in the borough now having officers dedicated to smaller but persistent problems. The mayor, along with the police commissioner, announced the news while at the Astoria houses, where residents say loud noises, illegal cars, and mopeds are a constant nuisance.
These aren't small inconveniences. They're our daily interruptions that chip at our peace, our dignity, and our safety.
It's hard to measure quality of life, but you know when it's missing, and you know when it's been restored. That's the standard we're aiming for, and the work begins in Queens now.
Since launching in Manhattan in April, the units have responded to more than 31,000 complaints. The expansion comes amid decreasing crime in the city in some categories, including murders and shootings. It comes as the Adams administration launched a new campaign, End Culture of Everything Goes, aimed at helping those struggling with mental illness.
Support is needed. We're providing it in our subways and providing it above can resolve if it's not ignored.
Adams successfully used public safety as a winning theme in his election in 2021. He's trying to repeat that strategy, but it could be more challenging with near record low poll numbers and a crowded field of rivals. On Monday, the mayor responded to a report from last week by the news site The City that said his new campaign headquarters in Brooklyn was hit with a vacate order by the Department of Buildings for safety reasons.
We're tenants. We sign the lease. We fill out the lease, we pay what it is to stay there. Building owners make sure that the properties can be occupied, etc. And so they say they did all the repairs and they're going to go in and have a re-inspection. That's part of the process. And once they do, then we go inside and continue.
And as you heard right there, the mayor hopeful that that Brooklyn headquarters for his campaign will open soon. It's unclear when that re-inspection date will be set. Ayanna.
From the mayor's office, from the police commissioner, that they are, in some ways helping to improve quality of life, cutting down response times. But have we heard any real indication from New Yorkers, from people who live in neighborhoods that these teams have been deployed to? Are they saying, yes, they're making a difference, or are we still waiting to get that information?
I think a little bit of both, Ayanna. Obviously, the residents we spoke to earlier today, I spoke to some off camera, also mentioned that it's just nice that people are responding to things that they see every day that gives them that feeling that they're unsafe. It's unclear yet if those issues that they're addressing are going to work long term, right? Because they've just started earlier this year. So we'll have to see how long these Q teams last. It was a pilot program that first started. So if they stay permanently and people are feeling like the complaints are going down and that those issues are being addressed for the long term, I think that will make the difference. This is a new pilot, so we'll have to see how this gets integrated full time.
And back to the mayor's new campaign office in Brooklyn, there are some issues there. Sound like it's not going to be able to until Election Day. Has the mayor shared, or his campaign shared, any info about when we might see campaign offices in Manhattan or Queens or the Bronx or Staten Island?
Yeah, they plan to open one in every borough, we should say. Unclear when those other offices will open. But Ayanna, something like this, such a flub at the very beginning. It's such, you would think that you would do this type of work in the background before you have this big grand opening. Could be something that speaks to the larger, maybe mismanagement on the campaign or what might happen in the future. You don't want something small like this to be an obstacle towards towards your goal of getting reelected. So I'm sure they're thinking about this and making sure that any other offices they open, that they're making sure they don't have full vacate orders on them.
All right, Kelly, we appreciate that update, and it is now time for a quick break. Coming up, the city's public school students made huge strides in math and reading last year. I'll talk it over with school's chancellor, Melissa Aviles Ramos, next. And later, I'll be Food and Water Watch Climate Group. We'll discuss the proposed expansion of natural gas pipelines in our state. and the fight to stop that from happening. Stay with us. We are back in 1 minute.
Every day tells a new story. At Mornings on One, we're dedicated to bringing you the stories that matter most to start your day. With in-depth coverage of the day's developing news.
I'm Pat Kernan. Here are the stories we're following this morning.
And weather updates every 10 minutes.
Some morning sunshine possible, clouds take over.
It's our responsibility to get you the information you need before you head out the door. Mornings on One, weekdays starting at 6 on the Spectrum News app. Free for Spectrum customers.
What do we have going on here?
Well, I heard you guys talking about online threats, so I built an internet for it.
We have Spectrum, so our internet blocks threats automatically.
Oh.
But the internet is full of trolls, so you keep a lookout.
On it.
If it's connected, it's protected. Spectrum Internet with advanced Wi-Fi.
I'm Sandra, this is Jorge, and we were adopted in 2019. I remember when they first came to us, Michael was already a teenager. The whole cliche of they're so lucky to have you guys, and it's the other way around. They have changed our family for the better. They chose to love us. They didn't have to. They chose us. Family.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org.
And that's a look at some of what's in the papers this morning.
We've done at the sports section.
Today's story is about the latest chapter for a beloved local business.
Showers are expected in the next hour.
Always on the go, it's important to stop to hear the stories that connect us.
The news that matters to New Yorkers. That's what brings us together. That's Mornings on One.
Weekdays starting at 6.
Exclusively on Spectrum.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. The statewide standardized test results are in, and it shows the city's public school students made big gains in math and in reading last year. The percentage of students scoring proficient or better on the English language arts exam increased by more than 7 points compared to 2024 to a little over 50. 57%. The results come as the city has launched new reading and math curriculum across the 5 boroughs. Joining me now to talk more about all of this is the city's schools chancellor, Melissa Aviles Ramos. Welcome back to the program. So great to have you.
Thank you. Great to be here.
You heard those numbers. The results came in. Students really showed up this year.
They sure did.
When you look at the numbers, what really stands out to you as a bright spot, a bright point?
You know, for me, this really tells us that we are on the right path. When Mayor Adams first came into office, he talked a lot about his own experiences in school and his expectation for the school system to really be a welcoming place that serves the needs of all students. And Chancellor Banks, my predecessor, he was telling everybody, we're doing all these big, bold things, but we have to stop and talk about the fundamentals because the kids are not reading. And that was really something that was important to him. I had the great privilege of serving as his chief of staff, so I was one of the key architects on his team to design this. And so what these numbers are telling us is that now, while we celebrate these numbers, right, we still see that there's a lot of work to do. And so I don't want to take away from the celebration, but this is telling us we're on the right path and there's still so much work to be done.
So how have the city's reading and math programs evolved in recent years?
That's a great question. So when we started with NYC Reads and Solves came a little bit later, our first order of business was to make sure that students had access to one of 3 curricula. And what was important about that is you shouldn't have to worry about the zip code you're in to access high quality instructional materials. That's just not acceptable. It was not acceptable to the mayor, to Chancellor Banks, and it's not to me. And so that's what we call tier 1 instruction. The instruction that everyone is getting, so everybody was getting 1 of 3 curriculum and they were getting that instruction in the classroom. But now the next phase of New York City Reads is focusing on those interventions. So if that tier 1 instruction isn't enough, quality just as the curriculum? Is it aligned to the curriculum? So it's evolved a little bit because we knew this was a multi-phase, multi-year approach. The scores went down a little bit last year, but that was expected. Other states have tackled this work, and their school districts are much smaller than ours, so it was to be expected. But we learned a lot. We focused ourselves, and as you said perfectly, our kids showed up.
When you talk about these interventions, what does that look like on a practical level? Is that pulling a student aside or giving them a little bit of extra help? How do those interventions take shape?
That's exactly right. So it could be a pulling out of the classroom, or it can actually be maybe small group instruction in the classroom. Sometimes after school tutoring happens. But what's important for us to take a look at is what that experience looks like for children. So is it actually something that's aligned to standards and aligned with the curriculum, or is it subpar instruction that's really doing it, but now we need to pay attention to the intervention. So that's really important.
This massive change, how did you get parents, students, and teachers all on board to get us to these results today?
So much engagement with everyone. And I think, going back to your question about bright spots, this is really a testament to the type of collaboration that happened across all stakeholder groups. So our literacy ambassadors, our families who were trained on the science of reading and championing it, to our small businesses. I was recently Mama Sushi and Dykeman, and the owner proudly showed off her display, of books there for her patrons. And then, of course, working in great partnership with our unions. I mean, Michael Mulgrew and Henry Rubio have been phenomenal partners, and honest partners, right? They would tell us what are some of the implementation hiccups that are going on, but that collaborative nature was there to make this work. And I think that's made all the difference in the world.
You just mentioned Michael Mulgrew. He shouted you out, and he said that the success of, these fighting DOE bureaucracy. What is he talking about?
Michael knows that, first and foremost, I'm a teacher. I mean, I was a teacher, I was a principal, but there are 2 hats that I'll never stop wearing, and that's teacher and mom of a New York City public school student. And so while I appreciate, the big headlines, I'm in the weeds. So I want to know what's going on in my schools. I want to talk to teachers directly. I want to talk to kids directly. And that's something that Michael does himself. Michael is very well known to his members, and together we partnered and went into the schools and figured out what was going on and how we could make it better.
Yeah, because there is always this long-term concern in New York City that there's too much attention, too many resources going to Tweed, the DOE headquarters, and not enough getting out to the school. So how have you been working to sort of shift that dynamic?
Yeah, well, I would agree with that. And so, as a matter of fact, before I started working at Tweed, one of the things I said was, I don't know that I want to. Truth is that it just took us to shift the culture, and that started with Chancellor Banks, making Tweed a kind of place where educators are welcome and families are welcome. And so to me, what that means is just being connected to the folks on the ground. I can't make decisions without truly engaging with my parents, my kids, my teachers. That's just not realistic.
Yeah, we have so much to talk about today. Of course, I have to ask about the cell phone ban. Right? Major change coming to all New York City schools this September. No cell phones in the classrooms, bell to bell. How is this, how's the plan working, and what's this implementation going to look like?
Yeah, well, first of all, one of the reasons why Mayor Adams and I decided not to move this along sooner was because we really wanted to engage with our parents and our advocates. And so that has been phenomenally helpful. And of course, our building leaders. I was a principal who collected cell phones, so I understand the logistics that go into it. And we know that one side 3 methods to restrict devices. So that's helpful. And more than half of our schools already have a cell phone restriction policy. So really what we did was issue a survey, connect with our superintendents and principals where this is new, and then provided targeted support to get them ready. So nothing is perfect, right? And this is a large system, and I'm the first one to always say we have to acknowledge our hiccups as they happen. But I am super confident, and the fact that we've been planning for this for a long time, I think we're going to see a fairly smooth transition.
Okay, also want to talk about class sizes. Any updates on the class size reduction plan? I know that that is, important for so many families, but also legally mandated to get down the size of classes in New York City. How's that going?
Yeah, it's going great because we have great partnerships with the unions. These plans that we approve to give extra money to the schools, I mean, that's huge for our schools. Again, as a principal, being able be difficult. So again, always want to thank Henry Rubio and Michael Mulgrew for their great partnership.
And so the extra funding that you have to help reduce class sizes, what is that funding going towards? Is it hiring new teachers? Do you need to build more classrooms? How are you working to actually make this a reality?
Yeah, it depends on the school's proposal. So some schools needed to convert maybe large office spaces into classrooms.
Okay.
Some people needed to hire extra teachers. If you're hiring enough extra teachers, you might need a couple of extra assistant principals to support with the onboarding and the professional learning. So it looked different for schools. But the important thing is that their proposals were read, their proposals were looked over by Michael, Henry, and myself, and we all agreed on who would get approval and what funding was attached to that plan.
Sounds like there wasn't exactly a summer break for the school's chancellor this year.
No, I've been busy. I'm not bored.
It sounds like it. And we greatly appreciate you taking some time from your busy schedule. It is now time for a break, and coming up, President Trump plans to call in the National Guard, declaring a federal takeover of Washington, D.C. We'll have the details of what this means for our nation's capital and how D.C. officials are responding. Coming up, stay with us.
This election year is all about New York City. There are 51 council seats up for grabs, races for our next city comptroller and the next public advocate.
Plus, an unprecedented race for mayor. That puts the power in your hands to decide who will run our city.
Our team of political experts will be covering every angle of this election to keep you informed on how it could affect you, so you can feel confident with your decision at the poll.
2025, exclusively on Spectrum.
We chose Spectrum Business because every second matters in our operation. We need a network that can move as quickly as we need to.
We are a takeout restaurant, half our business is online. So we needed something dependable, reliable, with great service.
The state-of-the-art facility depends on a state-of-the-art network to support classroom engagement.
Join the network made for business with solutions made for every size. Visit spectrum.com/made-for-business to get started.
Mom was always organized, but she started forgetting to pay her bills on time. And she'd buy the same gifts over and over.
Telling the girls about my Alzheimer's diagnosis was really hard.
At first, we had our cries, but then we were like, okay, let's make a plan. Early detection gave us time to adapt together.
It's so important for you to think about what you can do and making the most of what you have.
If you are Alzheimer's, talk about seeing a doctor together.
From my time growing up in Queens watching New York 1 to my time reporting here, I've seen how quickly a story can change. At News All Day, we bring you the news as it's happening, from around the boroughs to local government to your neighborhood. Because our city never stops moving.
3, 2, 1.
Hi, I'm Shannon Ferry with the day's developing stories. But first, stay up to date and informed with News All Day, weekdays from noon to 4.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. President Trump today ordered the deployment of National Guard troops into Washington, D.C. and a temporary federal government. This as he says crime is out of control in the nation's capital and in cities across America.
You expect more cities to follow DC's path if this goes through.
So they're watching us today, and if they don't learn their lesson, if they haven't studied us properly, because we're going to be very successful, I have zero doubt about that. Then I'm going to look at New York in a little while. Let's do this. Let's do this together. Let's see. It's going to go pretty quickly.
In D.C., officials say there's no need, as violent crime rates have been consistently falling. Spectrum News national political reporter Taylor Popolars has this in his latest report.
President Trump signed two crucial executive actions.
President Donald Trump took the extraordinary step Monday of deploying the National Guard into the District of Columbia and temporarily taking control of the D.C. Police Department. He said his goal is to make the nation's capital safer, though his are lower than previous years.
What you need is rules and regulations, and you need the right people to implement them. And we have the right people here, that I can tell you.
The president made the announcement alongside Attorney General Pam Bondi, FBI Director Kash Patel, and other officials, insisting there is a public safety emergency. However, D.C. police reported just last week that violent crime is down 26% compared to this time last year. Property crime is down 4%, and overall crime is down 7%. And the Justice Department said in January that violent crime in the district is the lowest it has been in over 30 years. But the president insisted this was necessary and said other cities should be on alert.
We're going to make it beautiful again, but we're going to make it, more importantly, safe again. It's going to be so safe. It's going to be a model. And then we'll look at other cities also, but other cities are studying what we're doing.
Trump is deploying at least 800 D.C. National Guard troops to assist local law enforcement on top of several hundred federal police. D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser said Monday the district will follow the law, but she questioned the basis for the president's declaration.
And while this action today is unsettling and unprecedented, I can't say that given some of the rhetoric of the past that we're totally surprised. I can say to D.C. residents that we will continue to operate our government in a way that makes you proud.
Because D.C. is not a state, President Trump does have the authority to deploy the D.C. National Guard, and he is allowed to temporarily take over the police department for up to 30 days before needing Congress to get involved. D.C.'s Attorney General called this move unprecedented and unlawful and said he's considering all options in response. Reporting at the White House, Taylor Popolars, Spectrum News.
And it is now time. I'll talk it over with a leading environmental advocate next. Stay with us.
My time at New York One has shown me that in the city that never sleeps, the news never stops. So as the day winds down, turn to the rush hour.
Good afternoon, I'm Monica Perkins.
To catch up on the stories that matter across the 5 boroughs, with in-depth interviews from the city's newsmakers, plus the latest forecast. Catching you up with today, preparing you for tomorrow. Right here on the Rush Hour. Weekdays from 4 to 7 p.m.
Plus, live TV for sports, entertainment, and news. All in one place, across your devices. So no matter when or where you are, it's all here. Spectrum.
I'm Chris Jakimick. I served in the United States Air Force, and I deployed 3 times. So in 2017, I was serving as an Air Force First Sergeant. Our motto in that role is, my job is people, everyone is my business. But unfortunately in that year, I would lose my own brother, Lance Corporal Adam Jakimick, to suicide. The majority of veteran suicides are from guns. I store my weapons securely, not only for myself, but for my family. My service never stops.
At Spectrum Noticias, we recognize that our New York City community is vibrant and diverse.
Spectrum Noticias delivers balanced coverage of the stories that matter in our communities and across the country.
Our journalists are based in the neighborhoods we cover, ensuring you get in-depth.
At Spectrum Noticias, we're always on, always there for you.
Now available on your TV. Check your local listings. Also available on the Spectrum News app.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. Over the weekend, hundreds of protesters marched across the Brooklyn Bridge, calling on Governor Hochul to reject a proposed expansion of a natural gas pipeline in the state. Back in May, Hochul appeared to be open to new pipeline projects after a meeting with President Trump, despite the state's effort to move away from fossil fuels. Following the Hochul-Trump talks, an Oklahoma-based energy company, Williams, filed a petition to revive talks to construct the Constitution pipeline connecting upstate New York to Pennsylvania. Joining me now to talk more about all of this is Laura Schindel, the New York State Director at Food and Water Watch. Laura, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hundreds of people came out Saturday for this march. What do you think what do you think drove so many people to show up to the Brooklyn Bridge Saturday?
Yeah, New Yorkers came out in force on Saturday to reject proposals to build 3 massive fracked gas pipelines in New York. The Constitution pipeline that would carry fracked gas from Pennsylvania through New York's southern tier, Catskills region, and the Capital region, that would clear-cut forests, require eminent domain, and would be 124 miles of pipeline crossing through hundreds of waterways. Williams Northeast Supply Enhancement Pipeline, or Williams-Nessie for short, would carry gas from Pennsylvania through New Jersey and then have 23 miles of pipeline built off the coast of New York City through Raritan Bay and then hugging the shores of Staten Island, Coney Island, and the Rockaways. And in order to build that pipeline, they would have to dredge the seafloor to lay the pipe. But toxic sediment lays dormant in New York Harbor from the industrial era. Mercury, copper, PCBs, that would all be churned up to build the pipeline. And that's why these pipelines were rejected, actually, years ago when Williams Company first applied to build them. New York State deemed them too toxic for our waterways. But now they're back, and New Yorkers are very angry that they are back and express their ire about the pipelines to Governor Hochul.
Has Governor Hochul directly expressed that she is considering these pipelines? What have we heard from her so far?
So what we know is that she had some sort of conversation with Donald Trump. President Trump claims he made a deal with Governor Hochul. She's hedged on admitting
Hochul's
that.
not exactly saying that,
But what she has said is that she has an openness to all forms of energy and has signaled that she would entertain the projects. And since that reporting came out earlier this year, Williams Company applied to build the Williams-Nessie pipeline. And then Governor Hochul and her Department of Environmental Conservation deemed the application complete without any opened a public comment shorter than is typical for New York, deciding if these pipelines would be appropriate.
And we're in that public comment period right now. Can you break it down for me? Which specific pipeline can New Yorkers go and give their public comment to right now? How long is the window open? What does this process look like?
Yeah, so pipelines need state permits to be built. They need to meet water quality standards. And so there is a public comment period open for the Williams-Nessie pipeline, the pipeline that would hug the shores of New York City beaches and affect New York City beachgoers and our climate. And that is open until Saturday, August 16th. So we have a few more days to voice our opinions and chime in. But Governor Hochul and her DEC did not schedule any public hearings, virtual or in person. The whole process has been rushed, and that is very troubling.
The people who do want
.org to learn about the pipeline and be directed to the comment prompts all before 5 p.m. on August 16th.
Okay. Laura, any indication as to why President Donald Trump is so interested in the fate of these potential pipelines here in New York City or around the New York region?
Well, Donald Trump and his allies want to drill, baby, drill, and they see New York's protection of our waterways as a hindrance to their agenda. Not to mention, Williams Company, the pipeline company, has a guaranteed rate of return on building on this pipeline of 14% guaranteed rate of return. So whether or not New Yorkers need these pipelines, which we don't, the pipeline companies profit from building them, and it's ratepayers who are forced to foot the bill. Just a way to feed the fossil fuel industry's corporate greed at the expense of New Yorkers' wallets and public health.
Have you reached out to Williams? And if so, what have they said to you?
We have not spoken to Williams. They have a mission to make money. We have a mission to protect New Yorkers, keep our water clean, uphold our climate law, and make sure that our state is making decisions in the best interest of its people. Williams Company doesn't have that same goal.
500 New Yorkers on the Brooklyn Bridge, that is certainly a significant number of people, a significant message to Governor Hochul. Do you have any sense that she understands how many people are paying close attention to this? Have you gotten any indication that she may be reconsidering her position?
We hope she'll reconsider, and we will make sure she reconsiders because we're only getting started. When the delegation were opposed to the pipeline, levels of government, city council, state legislature, everyone was opposed to the pipeline, even Republicans. And so, especially given Lieutenant Governor Antonio Delgado's opposition, I think Governor Hochul should quickly realize she should be listening to New Yorkers, not cowering to Trump's bullying. She's tried to present herself as a counterweight to President Trump, but so far, it seems she's aligning herself with his energy policy.
So, Laura, what do you say to people who point to increased demand for energy in New York City, and they believe perhaps these pipelines might help meet some of that demand?
Experts would say that the demand will be going down. We've passed lots of policies for energy efficiency, for making buildings more clean, less polluting. Also, Governor Hochul Valley in February that was supposed to meet the so-called need. So all the experts that actually look at this say, we don't need this gas. And not to mention the Constitution pipeline that would go upstate. That gas is destined for New England, not New York.
You had the protest on Saturday. You've got the website up. What's next in terms of your campaign to try and stop these pipelines from becoming a reality?
Well, we are collecting thousands of public comments before that deadline on Saturday. We'll be delivering them at Governor Hochul's Manhattan office this Friday, but there will be lots more to come with outspoken legislators, community members from Staten Island, the Rockaways, Coney Island, making their voices heard that we don't want to be sold out to the fossil fuel industry.
Okay, Laura Schindel, thank you so much for your time. It is time for a break. Coming up, we'll turn back to the race for mayor when I am joined by two top consultants. Stay with us.
If it's the theater you love, then we've got just the ticket.
On Stage is your all-access pass to Broadway, off-Broadway, and the best live entertainment in the city. The interviews and backstage exclusives. All that's made On Stage the go-to source for entertainment for over 20 years. Join us every Saturday and Sunday at 7:30 p.m. for On Stage. Also available on the Spectrum News app. I'll see you at the theater. Exclusively on Spectrum.
I'm kind of a deal hunter.
We used the Spectrum savings calculator before. I learned that since we're existing Spectrum Internet customers, we get a mobile line for a year.
Having a line for a year would be amazing. I looked at you and I said, how is the savings so substantial?
Switch and save with one mobile line included with your internet service. Backed by the Spectrum commitment to keep you connected.
I'm an ex-drug dealer, and I'll be your sub today. 2 milligrams of fentanyl can be lethal. A lethal dose is in here. Who gets it, I won't know.
It's cheap, it's potent, and it's profitable. The sad reality is fentanyl is being mixed into everything now.
More kitchen now.
Fighter. Workers in a city that doesn't stop when the sun goes down. Being with New York One since the beginning, I'm now honored to join you even earlier each weeknight. Starting at 8 with New York Tonight, we'll explore the latest news developments, followed by New York One at 10 to wrap up your day. So join me each weeknight starting at 8 right here on New York One.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall, where we're turning back to tonight's top story. Andrew Cuomo took aim at Zohran Mamdani over the weekend. On social media, the former governor accused Mamdani of not understanding the financial challenges of the average voter. Cuomo criticized the Democratic nominee for residing in a apartment in Queens. Joining me now to talk about this and more are two of this week's Consultants Corner. We have Democratic consultant Trip Yang and longtime political consultant Jonathan Greenspun. Thank you both for being with us.
Thank you. You're welcome.
So this $2,300 rent-stabilized apartment that Zohran Mamdani currently lives in, he's spoken about this. It's no secret. He even mentioned it on the debate stage. Andrew Cuomo clearly taking a more aggressive tone, going directly after Mamdani. Trip, is this the right strategy for Andrew Cuomo?
It feels like Andrew Cuomo has had a couple cups of coffee since he lost the primary resoundingly by 12 points. I just feel like it's a little too late, because the reality of the situation here is that Zohran Mamdani continues to live rent-free in Andrew Cuomo's mind. And so these attacks, I don't know if they're going to land the mark. Cuomo has to do something because there's a big rent stabilized. They're really meant for middle class, lower middle class, upper middle class. And so the argument here from Cuomo doesn't really have any substance. The larger point here is, can Cuomo make up the gap with Mamdani? I don't think he can with 2.5 months.
I mean, there is this long time controversy around the city that there is no real income cap on a rent stabilized apartment. So is Cuomo tapping into something, or is he just grasping at straws?
Only time will tell. I agree with Tripp. We don't know yet, right? The bottom line is, for the first time in a while, Andrew Cuomo won the media cycle today. Zohran Mamdani was going around in the 5 boroughs. Basically, his first stop in Manhattan was covered, but everyone's talking about this. Yes, people are criticizing it, but everybody's talking about it. In terms of whether or not this is going to stick, we don't know. I mean, we really have to just see if this is something that Andrew Cuomo is going to spend a week or two talking about on the campaign trail. We'll have to see whether or not it resonates with voters or not. But the bottom line is, I think Cuomo needed a day where people were focused on him, an issue, and I think today he got that.
We do have some of the response from Zohran Mamdani. Let's go ahead and take a listen.
This policy proposal, beyond like so much of Andrew Cuomo's politics, it is characterized by a petty vindictiveness. It leaves far more questions than it has answers. How many New Yorkers would this apply to? how many New Yorkers would be evicted from their apartments?
So Zohran Mamdani right there, he's talking about Zohran's Law, which Andrew Cuomo has put out a broad proposal for. It's unclear whether or not this could actually even become a law, but he wants to have some sort of income cap for people moving into rent-stabilized apartments. But I think the real question is, how is Andrew Cuomo finding his voice in this race? You know, Cuomo has said, I was too soft, I was too passive during the primary. Now he's coming out and being very aggressive. Is the aggressive tone the right tone? Does he need to find a happy medium? Is there a happy medium?
Well, the reality is that Cuomo's so far behind in the general election. When he's running a third-party challenge in a city that most registered voters are registered Democrats, he has to throw something and stick at the wall. What I will say, the primary, Andrew Cuomo is actually graded on the curve. Because he's the underdog, because us in the political and the media landscape, we really like to view a race as a horse race, even though Mamdani's the clear favorite here. Cuomo is actually getting the kid gloves treatment from the media for the first time in a long time. And Mamdani, by the way, who had a lot of gushing media coverage over him, his charisma, the Riz, as the kids would say, he is the Rizzler after all. He had a lot of kid gloves from the media, a lot of fluff pieces, and quite frankly, his charisma earned him that. He's now graded on a much, much higher curve than Andrew Cuomo or that third string candidate Eric Adams is in this general election. So that's part of it right now, is that the media and the political insiders are viewing them on two very different curves. That's the only reason I could see why some would say that Cuomo was having a little bit better than a normal day.
It looks like you were just about to jump in.
Yeah. So look, that's a good thing, right? Because there is a serious question. Okay, here's what we know. Not all rent-stabilized buildings are equal. When you take a look at the Bronx, and there was a great article in The City about this last week, where within the Bronx, you have serious issues of economic viability within the rent-stabilized market. If you're in a building that was built before 1974 and 75% of the units are rent-stabilized, you have a big problem meeting expenses in those buildings. Yes. Now, the problem is when you agree to freeze rents on all rent-stabilized buildings, yeah, you could probably get away with that in Queens and parts of Manhattan, but the Bronx has shown serious trouble, and this isn't even in dispute. By the way, that's about 400,000 rent-stabilized units that I just characterized earlier. That's 40% of rent-stabilized apartments of a million. So I think it's time that the media has to start looking at the viability of some of Mamdani's ideas, and I think that Tripp's right. They're doing it right now.
Representing the interests of rent-stabilized landlords, that's something that Mayor Eric Adams has tried to continue to push back into the conversation. But I also want to bring Donald Trump into the conversation. That New York Times reporting last week that Trump is considering weighing into the race. The Times is saying Trump and Cuomo had a call. They're both denying it. I wondered during this Zohran's Law proposal if this was also just Andrew Cuomo trying to change the conversation and have people stop talking about, you know, himself and the president.
That would actually be a good strategic move, because Donald Trump is the most unpopular figure in New York City right now. I'd rather take an expensive rent over having to track with Donald Trump as a New Yorker, because right now Trump's approval rating is probably minus 60%. Anytime Trump says something good about a candidate, that candidate's main opponent is the beneficiary. You don't want to be anywhere close to Donald Trump in New York City.
Curtis Lewa, the Republican nominee,
I know,
has
even
said
Curtis says
Donald Trump should stay out of this race. So to say, I'll call him back later, which is I won't call him back until after the election, because that call, just whether it happened or not, is an open question, but that doesn't help anybody.
Okay. We are going to be right back after a very brief break. I'll have more to talk about with these two consultants when we return. Stay with us.
As native New Yorkers, the weekend team at New York One is here to be a voice for your community.
Our focus is to uphold the journalistic principles our network was built on.
Using our years of local reporting experience to take on important issues across the 5 boroughs. Morning, noon, or night, it's in-depth coverage that prepares you for the week ahead.
Spectrum News, New York One.
Available on all your devices.
Developing
I'm Pat Turner. Here are the stories we're following this morning.
And weather updates.
Clouds take over.
It's our responsibility to get you the information you need before you head out the door. Mornings on 1. Weekdays starting at 6 on the Spectrum News app. Free for Spectrum customers.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. I'm once again joined by my Consultants Corner, Democratic consultant Trip Yang and political consultant Jonathan Greenspun. Great to have you back with me. You know, I want to talk about Zohran Mamdani. He launched this 5-borough tour all around the city, trying to highlight ways in which he's arguing Donald Trump has hurt New York City, hurt New Yorkers. And he's doing it with some well-known Democrats. For example, he was with Jerry Nadler as they kicked off this tour in Manhattan. Is this a way for Zohran Mamdani to appear more credible to more Democrats, particularly those who haven't yet gotten on board with him?
Well, I would say is the biggest form of validation you can already have. But look, this media-savvy, media-aggressive approach from Zohran Mamdani is really going back to his roots and how he won the primary in the first place. He was everywhere. He was on mainstream media. He was on podcasts. You could not get enough of Zohran Mamdani. And the media, they had a really good rapport with him. And so this is the strategy here is just re-engaging with what got him here as the Democratic nominee. Some of these electeds absolutely bring credibility. Jerry Nadler, of course, one of the most senior Jewish American elected officials in the country. But look, this is really Zohran Mamdani continuing to play to his smarts and his strengths. And look, anytime that Zohran Mamdani is contrasted with Donald Trump, it's going to be a good day for Zohran Mamdani.
When, you know, Zohran Mamdani shows up with Jerry Nadler, does it beg the question, when are Governor Kathy Hochul and Congressman Hakeem Jeffries going to get on board?
Well, Jerry Nadler was asked that question, and he kind of sidestepped it. You're not going to start seeing these endorsements until depends. I mean, it really depends on how the race unfolds. I think the smart thing to do is to just wait. There's no reason why the governor or Hakeem Jeffries has to run in and endorse him right now. Yes, he's the Democratic nominee, but at the same time, these elected officials have had some issues, particularly with the DSA. Now, you can't outwork the guy. He's going to put in 18, 20-hour days. He's proven that already. But what you have to see from some of the other nominees, whether it's Cuomo or Adams, is they're going to have to match that at some point. It can't just be one event a day. You're going to have to be able to keep up with him and show that you could really get out there. And the mayor has a pretty good record of working hard. Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
But I think if you're Cuomo, I'm not saying like copy a 5-borough day, but I'm saying, you know, getting out, having a public schedule that has 6, 7, 8 events, something you can't do 5 days a week, 6 days a week, but you should continue to do that.
I mean, will we see Cuomo do that? I mean, right after he decided that he, you know, Cuomo told myself, he told Errol Lewis that he's going to be out there a lot more often. I didn't see a public schedule for today. I don't know if there's one coming for tomorrow. So was it a 2-week blitz and he goes away? Where's Andrew Cuomo?
I will say that the
how does the strategy work for him?
Yeah. The ideal candidate against Mamdani, even though they'll be an underdog, is if you had Andrew Cuomo merge with Eric Adams' strengths. Eric Adams actually seems to relish talking to voters, being out there in the 5 boroughs, marching in all the parades, shaking everyone's hands, slapping those backs. Andrew Cuomo has no personality. I think any one of us who work in New York politics, you know, he is not the most charismatic guy. If you match them with Eric Adams' energy, you know, if you match their respective strengths, you might get a comparable opponent for Zohran Mamdani. You know, obviously that is not the case here.
You'd asked the question earlier, is this really going to work with voters? Look, it depends on where you go. Zohran Mamdani, not everybody is buying what he's selling. Yeah. But by the same token, as far as Cuomo is concerned, look, I can tell you this: the more you go out there, the more you interact with people, the more comfortable you become. I think there's a possibility of him becoming that guy who can glad hand and walk the streets, but he's got to do more of it. And the more he does, I think the easier it becomes.
He probably should have done that in, in June when the Democratic primary was on.
Well, he's admitted that himself, right? He said he should have.
I'll say briefly, just because you brought up the point earlier, in regards to somehow the Democratic leadership is engaging with this race. Someone like Governor Hochul, who's the leader of our state, You know, she's smart, political operator. She's going to make her decision on her own timeline. She has mentioned where she agrees with Mamdani, the focus on affordability, the focus on more affordable housing. And she's also specified where she may have a professional disagreement, such as raising taxes on the wealthy. And so, you know, I agree with my colleague. You know, a lot of these leaders don't make their decisions on their own timeline.
Speaking of Governor Hochul, I do want to get into this redistricting fight that's shaping up between Texas and New York. Governor Hochul has redoubled New York amid efforts there. How does this play for Kathy Hochul? If you were advising her, of course she's governor right now, but she's thinking about 2026, I'm sure. Is this the right fight to take on?
It absolutely is, because for far too long, Democrats have actually just unilaterally disarmed against Republicans. And so right now, when Donald Trump has his overzealous redistricting push, trying to change states like Texas and having 5 more Republican seats, states like New York, states like California, we have to push back. This really positions Kathy Hochul to be a national Democratic leader. And by the way, Zohran Mamdani goes out of his way to praise Governor Hochul's push for